Your Father God will always lead you clearly and distinctly. God fights for you. God will shield you from all your enemies. The Lord is your strength, song, and salvation. He is your God, and you exalt him. Those who fight against you fight against God, and he completely destroys them. You always obey your Father God's voice, and you keep his covenant, and you are a special treasure to him. You are part of a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. God your Father has delivered you from all bondage. You have no other gods before your Father God. You do not make or worship anything as an idol. You love your Father God, and you keep his commands, and he does you his kindness, Hasid. You never use God's name in an evil or useless manner. You know and regard God your Father's day of rest, the Sabbath, to be holy. You honor your father and mother, and your days are long in the land that the Lord gives you. You do not murder. You do not commit adultery. You do not steal. You do not give false testimony about anyone. You do not covet anything that belongs to someone else. You have your Father God's reverence, so you do not sin. You always tell the truth, and you do not go along with a lie. You never go along with a wrong decision, even if many others do. You never engage in any shady or questionable business or matter. You never take a bribe of any kind. You always treat everyone, even strangers, kindly and fairly. God's angel goes before you to protect you and make sure you get to where your Father God has prepared for you, your destiny. You obey your Father God's leadings, and he is an adversary to your adversaries and an enemy to your enemies. You serve God, and he blesses your food and removes all sickness from you. Your Father God makes sure nothing that pertains to you is barren, and he makes sure you live a long and full life. Your Father God makes all your enemies run from you. You never join yourself to the ungodly or to the things they serve. Your Father God takes very good care of you, and he commands others to do so as well. Your Father God takes very good care of you, and you gladly and willingly minister to him. Your Father God meets, gathers, and assembles with you in your body, which is his temple, and his presence sanctifies you, makes and declares you clean. You make a point to remember all the good things your Father God has done for you. Your Father God puts his own talent and ability and understanding in you to fulfill what he has destined for you to do in this life and beyond. Your Father God thoroughly equips you to do everything he has destined for you to do. God your Father's presence goes with you, and he gives you rest. Your Father God is with you, and this distinguishes you from everyone that does not seek after your Father God. God won't let you lose for serving him. You have a willing heart to bring offerings to your Father God, and you do bring him offerings. When God is behind the work, there will be much more than enough provision. God never requires more from you than you can do or give. You always do things God's way and not according to the traditions of men. You always follow and do God's ways, and you are firmly established. You are holy as God your Father is holy. You respect your mother and father, and you rest in your Father God's finished work. You worship God only. Everything you give to God, you give gladly and of your own free will. You always help take care of the poor. You never steal, lie, or operate deceptively. You always deal kindly and fairly with everyone. You are always fair and just with everyone, no matter who they are. You don't spread lies about anyone. You never lie about anyone, especially if it will do harm to their life. You do not hate anyone, and you make people aware of sin so that they can correct themselves. You love others the way you love yourself. You never engage in any kind of witchcraft. You do not purposefully mar your body in any way. You have and show respect for those older than you. You are kind and fair to everyone, regardless of color or creed. You are honest in everything you do. You always do things according to God's way of doing things. You only offer good things to your Father God. You always take good care of the land your Father God gives you, and you don't overwork it. You always obey your Father God and live according to His way of doing things, and He makes sure you are well satisfied. Your Father God blesses, empowers, and keeps, guards, protects, and attends to you. Your Father God makes His face shine upon you. He looks favorable towards you at all times and in every circumstance. Your Father God is gracious towards you. He gives you and treats you with favor, mercy, and kindness. Your Father God lifts His face upon you. He is always paying attention to you, and whenever someone or something looks at you, they see His face. And He gives you peace, shalom, which includes happiness, health, prosperity, and everything good and beneficial for an indescribably great life. Your Father God's name is on you and in you, and He Himself blesses you. He empowers you with everything conceivably needed in authority, provision, might, understanding, know-how, and anything and everything else possible to be absurdly and fully successful in absolutely everything at all times. With Him, you cannot ever fail. Your Father God leads you at all times, and you always follow His leading and direction. Your Father God frees you from all that would oppress you. You never fear your enemies. God is with you, and your enemies have no defenses at all. You can pray for others, and God hears you and answers quickly. Your Father God fills the whole earth with His glory, and you always yield to and flow with and in this glory. You always fully follow your Father God, and you receive and realize all of His promises for you and your family. God your Father has blessed you, and no one can curse you. Anyone who tries will end up blessing you. God your Father has blessed you, and no one can change or reverse that. Those who bless you will be blessed, and those who curse you will be cursed. You only speak your Father God's words and nothing else. You always fully displace the enemy and fully possess all of the territory your Father God has given you. You tell others what your Father God gives you to tell them. You are able to delegate as your Father God leads you to do so. You always judge righteously and without favoritism. You always fully possess everything your Father God has given you, and you never fear, and you are never discouraged. You are never afraid. Your Father God always goes before you, and He always fights for you. You always fully follow your Father God, and you are always blessed. You always listen to and obey your Father God. You never act presumptuously, and your Father God is always with you. Your Father God has a specific place He has prepared for you. All that your Father God gives you, you are well able to possess. You never try to go to or possess anything your Father God hasn't given you. You do not fear anyone or anything because your Father God fights for you. You keep and do your Father God's statutes, and this is wisdom and understanding to you, and shows wisdom and understanding to all. You always keep and walk in your Father God's commandments and laws, and you have a long, prosperous, peaceful, and blessed life in that which your Father God gives unto you. You love your Father God with all your heart, your core values and feelings, soul, all of your mind, will, emotions, and life, and might, your strength and full substance. You keep your Father God's commandments constantly before your eyes, in your mind, and in your speech, and you teach your family the same. Your Father God gives you things that are fully functioning and developed, completely turnkey, and you possess these things and use them in full accordance with your Father God's kingdom and for His glory.